regardless of how you feel, they have made a bit of a bet on Jared Kelenic. At least it feels that way.
I was asking you something off the air this morning. And I mean, you had a good answer for it, but it is a bit of a debate. Sure, Jared Kelenic is young, which I am so sick of hearing at this point.
Thank you, Maureen.
Please don't tell me he's young anymore. But all that means is that he still has time in his career. Like, he may still have time in his career to figure it out, but does he still have time with the Mariners? Like, are we still going to be saying this next year?
No.
He's young, but he's had these chances for a while now.
This is his third trip around the Mariners globe. Like, it's time to figure it out this year. And I'll say this, if they could have found a reasonable deal for Ryan Reynolds and Jared Kelenic was in it, I don't think we'd be talking about Jared Kelenic. I think he was on the trading block. I think he was a piece that they were willing for the right guy to
Well, there's a difference between, yes, they were willing to move on and he was on the trading block. Those are two very different terms.
They are.
He was not on the trading block. Would they have dealt him to get a Brian Reynolds? Yes.
Sorry,
but I think
Brian.
those two things are incredibly different. I don't think they've been looking to trade Jared Kelenic, but I do think they were willing to give him
I think that's fair.
for a spectacular player that they covet. That's a major difference.
Now, I will also say this, like Maureen, I too can't stand the word young. And in fact, Maura, years ago, one of my first hot takes, maybe my first ever, the first iteration of the Brock and Salk show, it's like, Salk's take, all these hot takes, he's a hot take guy. Maybe I can be a good teammate. Maybe every once in a while, why don't you step up instead of trying to just be Mr. Nice Guy all the time? So do you remember one of my first hot takes? And every year, Steve Sarkisian's D coordinator, Nick Holt, say, we're just young, and we're just young. I'm done with young. Young in college football, flush it down the toilet.
Agreed.
I'm done with it.
Yes.
It's a little different in baseball.
It's a lot different.
Scott, well, not a lot different, because Scott references it there. Your superstars, your difference makers typically hit young. It didn't take long to figure out Vlad Guerrero could play. It didn't take long to figure out Fernando Tatis could play. It didn't take long to figure out Julio Rodriguez could play.
Right, and it's fair to say that Jared Kelenic may not be in that stratosphere, but that doesn't mean that he's not going to turn into a good Major League Baseball player. And he is young. He is yet to play a game. He's not even turned 23 yet. If he was a college baseball player, he'd still be in college and just coming into the draft, where he would then spend some time in the minor leagues and then come to you in the majors in 2 years. So I'm not telling you he's going to succeed. I don't know that. He's got something going on in his head that seems to be preventing him from having success. But why is it important to talk about him being young? It's not about the physical gifts. It's about figuring it out mentally. And when do you start to figure it out mentally? As you get older.
Some do. Not everybody.
I understand that. Not everybody does.
Nope.
But I'm going to give a 23-year-old a better chance than a 21-year-old with more life experience, and as he continues to go through the humbling process. So I understand the frustration.
He's got one more year here. He's got one more year. When Morris says, how much time, in my opinion, I may be wrong, but I think he's got one more year. He's got this spring training. He's got a platoon in left field. They're going to try to set him up for as much success as possible. They're not going to try to give him the heavy lifting, because he has shown the last couple of years a level of fragility between the ears when it comes to expectation. So they will do all they can to set the table appropriately for him. And if it doesn't work this year, Salk, I don't think you get a fourth turn at it.
Yeah, it would. I don't know that. I don't know either way yet. I think that's a fair argument to make. You guys might be right about that. On the other hand, if he spends the year in the minors, he's still your property, right? I mean, like, you could still an asset for you. What if he figures it out at 24 instead of 23? You want to pass on?
How do you figure that out? You're going to keep giving him significant time?
Probably not. I would agree with that. If he ends up figuring it out after this year, it won't because you give him a spot. It's because something else happens. Somebody gets hurt. He gets called up. He slides into it. But you know what? That doesn't mean it can't happen that way.
What with Cal Raleigh?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Who, by the way, is like 4 years older than Kelenic. So, look, I know you guys don't want to hear that he's young. I know it's frustrating. I know baseball takes patience. I know it drives everybody absolutely bonkers when things don't happen on their timeline. But that's the game. That's baseball. It's not college football.
It is.
It's not the NFL. It is its own entity. And you're right. Kelenic probably now isn't going to be a Julio Rodriguez. That's probably true at this point. He's not going to be a superstar. Could he be an all-star? Could he be a contributing everyday major league hitter that makes a difference for your team? Yeah. I still absolutely think he can.
Figure it out between his ears, I think, more than anything else.
I think that's 100% true.